Hi Digital Chiefs. Have you ever wondered why you're not getting responses from your cold emails and pitch decks? Well, you're in luck today because I'm going to walk through an actual cold email and pitch deck that I received recently in my inbox. I'm going to share exactly what I'm thinking and what investors are thinking as we go through these. I know I love seeing real world examples. It helps me learn much faster. Now, this particular business is not in technology, but I am seeing the same problems. There are so many things to learn from this one, so make sure you watch through to the end so that you get all of the juice out of this lemon. First up, the email itself is not clearly marked as confidential. You don't actually see it until the very bottom of the email in very small text. I actually missed it on the first time I looked at the email. That means it puts the email itself and the attached pitch deck at risk. The pitch deck itself is definitely also not marked as confidential. So let's start with the subject line. It does not stand out at all with investors that get hundreds of pitches every month, every year. As some of you might have noticed this about yourself, most of us don't read our emails anymore. We scan through them in an F-like pattern, i.e. we go through the left side of them very quickly and then we decide if we're actually going to read the emails. So straight away, if you open up this email, it is intense. It is a wall of text, so it fails the scan test straight away. Naturally, I read through this email so that I could share the lessons with you. But keep in mind, most investors will simply skip over this email and not even read it. That means you are unlikely to get any response. Despite the length of the email, there are no real numbers in the text. Numbers are important when it comes to investors looking for a return. And then it very obviously shows that this particular founder has done no research. I am no longer based in New York City. This particular deck did come from a founder in New York City. Then there's a little bit of a controversial red flag. It appeals to my gender. But the problem is that it appeals to my gender only, i.e. simply based on my gender, I should be interested. Now, let me tell you, no investor wants to be investing simply because they are in the right gender. Instead, you should be focused on what we bring to the table that is unique, whether that is our expertise or our network. Ideally, less than 10% of the population should have this criteria, not when it's 50% of the population. Now, the great thing about this email is the name dropping. There's good context about who these people are. Unfortunately, I really don't have the appreciation for it, given that I'm slightly allergic to exercise. There's nothing in my profile that suggests that I'm into fitness, so any competitive sports is completely beyond my own understanding. Now, there's a second part that mentions a charity. Unfortunately, charity and venture capital are things that are sort of contradictory, so they really shouldn't be mentioned together. The part about no organization helping women in self-defense is incorrect. There might not be any charities doing this. However, there are plenty of groups out there that do self-defense for women. Again, if the unique selling point is that this is a charity, then it really does conflict with the venture capital model. So overall, this whole email is not personalized. It is really not well researched at all. I've already spent 3 minutes reading this and I'm no closer to understanding why this is a great investment. Another mention of a non-profit here. Again, I'm confused. Are they looking for support in terms of venture capital, or are they looking to form a foundation which is closer to a charity? The incoherent narrative is terrible because it confuses the investor. Again, there's more mention of her experience and expertise in New York City. She is obviously a writer and a successful one at that. However, all the media that she is mentioned here is irrelevant to running a fitness company. She could have also summed it up in a couple of bullet points instead of paragraphs of text. the amount of viewership growth she's been able to achieve and the overall EU viewership. She's actually left out the most interesting part, i.e. she's built a great business. Did she actually exit out of that business? Did she make a return on it? The book deal is also fantastic, but again, I'm missing the connection between why this book deal is fantastic for this particular business that she's pitching. I'm almost at the end of this email and I still don't know what exactly this particular person wants and how I can help. So hopefully you've gathered that it is important to be brief and concise and get to the points that the investors are looking for. Now, finally, at the end, the founder seems to want to meet, but I really don't know what I can do to help support this founder. Is it investment? Is it my network they're looking to access? Is it certain kinds of expertise they're looking for? After spending 10 minutes reading through this email, the only thing that I can gather is that I am a female investor. That is the only reason why she wants to speak to me. Now, the email itself is obviously a template, and that in itself is okay. However, she's used the word honor, and therefore it comes across a little bit insincere given the entire email is not tailored to anyone. And then lastly, finishing off with in any capacity whatsoever. Sounds a little bit desperate. Now let's move on to the pitch deck. Hopefully you've gathered that I would typically already hit delete on this email, but again, for your learning, assume that I have gotten through to the end of the email and opened up the pitch deck. I will make a point here, before I've even opened up the pitch deck, I know it will reflect the email I've just read. i.e. it'll be long, it'll be waffly, and frankly, it'll lack numbers. Again, you'd probably be more forgiving if this pitch was in your area of expertise, i.e. in fitness, in boxing, in competitive sports. You'd probably read all the way through and open the attachments. But for a professional investor, male or female, it really doesn't tick the boxes unless, again, there was an introduction made, i.e. someone from the personal network. So first of all, there are no page numbers on the actual slides themselves. It is in total 27 slides, so already it is way too long for a standard pitch deck that is for an intro email. We'd say normally a maximum 20 slides, but even a teaser slide of 5 to 10 is enough. If you've taken my online fundraising course, you'll know that I recommend having 3 slide packs. The first being the teaser slide I mentioned at under 10 slides. The second being the pitching or presentation slide, anywhere from 10 to 20 slides. And then the last being the full information pack and the full business plan that could have upwards of 50 slides. So the first 5 slides are wasted with stock images for this particular deck. The first few slides are incredibly important to secure and maintain the investor's interest. It's not a place to be promoting your brand images and your brand style. Slide 3 is a copy and paste of the email itself, so it's a duplication. Why is there a letter in a deck? A deck is meant to be a presentation of some sort. Why is the investor being forced to read information twice? So this is where I finally understand a little bit about the business. It's a hybrid exercise program. But I still have questions. Is this a studio? Is this a gym? Is this a charity? Given the fact that she said there are no non-profits focused on this issue, I assume that was the core problem. Slide 8, we finally hit the core problem. Again, it's not true that there are no independent programs and gyms that focus on self-defense. The statement is also not backed up by data. Where are the survey results? I can assure you that an all-female community doesn't always provide a safe and supportive environment. I mean, has anyone watched Mean Girls? Slide 10 to 13 are more stock images. I really can't make a sense of why there are day and night images. How does this look different from the 100 other gyms out there? How does it give an edge to the existing competition? Is it something to do with the layout and the design or the equipment? Slide 15, again, more incoherent narrative. Are you looking to teach women self-defense as the priority or fitness? The email itself and the problem statement was mostly about self-defense. However, the pitch deck seems to have veered more into fitness. There is nothing on the self-defense side. The target market slide really tells me nothing besides the fact that they are looking to target women at 18 to 25. Do they live in cities where there might be more crime? Do they work in certain roles that actually make them more vulnerable? It is also incredibly hard to be selling to everyone right at the start of the business, given that you have limited time and limited money. Slide 17 is a tell slide. There is no explanation on how you are being innovative. There's only mentions of some legends creating the program. Again, I still don't know how this is different from existing fitness and self-defense classes. The market slide. Are these stats related to women? It looks like general stats for any gym equipment and any gym facility. It is way too general and really looks very lazy. The growth here, is it US growth? Is it global growth? I really have no context. So the last few slides, there's merchandise thrown in. Is this the actual business? There's also additional slides about expansion. I'm really one of the investors who believe in walking before you run, focus on one problem, one solution, and executing that very well. Expansion ideas should really not be covered in an early stage pitch deck. So the funny thing here is that there is an expansion slide, but there really is no competitor slide. Finally, we get to the slide on fundraising, except there's no real numbers to explain how the actual money will be used. And then lastly, to finish off, there's a request for 100K for research and development. My first question is why? Why do you need that much money? I'm not sure what kind of research and development will be required for a gym. None of the terms are defined in the fundraising pie. So it's become pretty obvious that this person doesn't actually know the basics of running a business. There's no business model. What do you plan to charge? How do you plan to acquire customers? Despite the deck being 27 slides, there are crucial slides and information missing. You must be thinking, wow, I picked a particularly bad slide deck, but I'm afraid this is what most of the pitches and decks look like when they arrive into an investor's inbox. I know this particular founder will have a lot of trouble raising capital and getting meetings, unless of course she has access to a network of introductions that can vouch for her, or secondly, she starts targeting investors that are focused on the industry she is working on, i.e. self-defense and fitness. She will not be able to raise capital from professional venture investors given the lack of scalability. Hopefully you've learned a few things about what to avoid when it comes to emailing and pitching investors. I know some of this feedback is incredibly confronting and a little harsh. However, I also think it's important to walk through exactly what an investor is thinking so that you don't make the same mistakes yourself. I certainly made the same mistakes when I applied for accelerator programs and when I talked to investors. Few investors will share exactly what they're thinking, why they're not investing, and of course, some don't even reply. Now, if you like these style of videos, make sure you leave me a like and a comment. I'll do more of them. My online course runs through a number of pitch decks and cold emails as well. They range from being terrible to excellent, and one actually raised a £500K seed round. If you want to avoid making more mistakes when pitching investors, check out my next video.